All right. Let's do this thing, yeah? Everybody ready to learn about this? This is the big one, because here's the deal. We can have all the goals in the world, all the big dreams in the world, but if you don't stay motivated to pursue them, what happens? Falls flat on its face, yes? So I assume if we're going to talk about the motivation to pursue the impossible, we'd first better figure out what in the world is the impossible. What is it? Have you considered? Do you know what it is? What it actually is? What is the impossible? The impossible is nothing more than something that right now you don't know how. That's it. That's all it is. The only difference between possible and impossible is yet. It's because anything that's impossible to you is something you've never seen before. You haven't seen it. You don't know how to do it. Therefore, it feels impossible to you. But that doesn't have anything to do with its actual possibility. I want you to think about this for a second. Carl Joseph, young man born with only one leg, literally only one leg, the other leg all the way up to the hip. He was born this way. His mother decided never to give him a prosthetic limb. With one leg only, Carl used to sit and watch Saturday college football with his dad. Oh, Carl longed to play football. And his mom used to say, if you want to play football, son, play football. Carl would say, but I only have one leg. And his mom said, what difference does that make? You want to play football? Play football. Carl Joseph, born with one leg and no prosthetic limb, set a record in the 40. Now, I want you to think about this. I just need you for a second to let that play in your head and see if you can even figure that out. The people who documented his story said if you didn't witness it for yourself, you could not imagine it. That's how impossible it was. But Carl Joseph went on to become the single first man without a limb to get an NCAA scholarship to play football as a linebacker. A linebacker. I mean, I'm a football fan, guys, and I can't even imagine that. Can you imagine that? Doesn't that seem impossible? Or is it actually just something that you haven't been able to register through your head yet and figure out how that could be known and how it could be done? Why wasn't it impossible to Carl? Because he grew up with a mother who told him, God made you this way, which means whatever God puts in your heart to do is possible for you to do. So if God put football in your heart, son, you play football. How about Cliff Young, 61 years old, a potato farmer out of Australia, poor as poor can be, dirt poor, literally. He had nothing but dirt. He didn't even have enough money to afford the equipment for actually going out into the field. So Cliff spent days, all day long, getting in those potato fields, shuffling his little self all over the place. And his friends got together and they were joking because there was the huge ultra marathon in town that was a run from Sydney to Melbourne, 543 miles long. They said, Cliff, you could probably run that race. You're on your feet so much. And Cliff was like, I've never considered that before. Maybe I'll try. Well, all of us know that you don't just try to run 543 miles. Like you train for these things. You show up, but Cliff just shows up to the race. And guess what he was wearing when he showed up? That. He had gum boots on. He had a sun-brimmed hat and had a little knapsack with some snacks in it. When they got to the starting line, the entire organization tried to talk Cliff out of this thing. I mean, they got liability going all over the place. This man is going to die on their watch on this, trying to talk. Spectators are over there. He's like, no, I'm going to run it. Every other runner there, professional athlete, teams of people, sponsorships, the right shoes, the right shorts, the right training, the right knowledge, the mental resilience coaches, all of it. They had an entire organization there to support their pursuit of this impossible run. But it's just Cliff, a couple of his buddies that came to support him in his gum boots, his wading pants, and his sunburned hat. Well, everybody gets to the starting line and all eyes are on Cliff, of course, because what in the world is this man doing, thinking he even can dare to stand at our starting line? But he gets up to the starting line with all those people in their fancy gear, and the gun goes off, And within an hour, everybody lost interest in Cliff. He was so far behind, nobody even paid attention to Cliff anymore. But I'm going to fast forward to the end of the story here. And Cliff did, in fact, finish this race, but he didn't just finish. Cliff won. And he didn't just win. He beat the previous standing record that had been standing for 52 years by over 24 hours. You see, the thing is that nobody told Cliff you're supposed to sleep at night. Every other runner knew what they knew about how to run this race was that you run during the day, you sleep at night. You run as hard as you can during the day, then you sleep at night. That's how you run an ultra marathon, you guys. That's how you do it. And so to try to get less time than that is impossible because it's never been done before, because what's known about how, well, it can't be done, can it? Until somebody came along who didn't know about the how and blew the thing out of the water. Blew it out of the water. Every single year after that, for 15 years in a row, that record was broken. No athlete slept after that. I want you to think about that. How does a 61-year-old potato farmer with no business being in a race change the game? Matter of fact, they literally adopted an ultra marathon running style after Cliff. They called it the Cliff Shuffle because of the way he had to run in his little gum boots. They thought that he was conserving energy. This man changed the sport of ultra marathoning, and he had never run in a race in his life. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about what the impossible actually is nothing more than you figuring out whether or not you have placed self-imposed limitations on yourself because of what you know how to do. So when you put a goal on that paper, when you said, oh, I'm going after the impossible, is it actually impossible, or are you shortchanging? Let's be honest. Are you shortchanging because you only wrote something down that in your mind you could contrive of the entire business plan in the world of the how and the world of the known? Or did you actually write down something that you believe, I have no idea how on this great earth this is getting done, and I'm going to do it? Because that is impossible until it isn't, because it's just a matter of yet. Why is this the case? Guys, why do we limit ourselves so much? Because the brain is actually an analytical machine programmed for survival. And because of that, it is literally focused on constantly predicting the future. Have you ever noticed how you find yourself in a situation, next thing you know, without even thinking about it, you're thinking about it, and you've come up with plan A, B, and C on how you're going to deal with that? The brain's mechanism for survival is predicting the future. So if you write something down on your little paper and your brain cannot contrive how, it's going to start sending all kinds of signals, and you're going to be super uncomfortable. You're like, woohoo, I'm not writing that down. So are you going after the impossible, or are you going after the known? Because the brain is programmed to lock you in to the known because it's programmed for survival. But here's a beautiful thing, you guys. You actually have power over that. You don't have power over it unintentionally, because when you sit here and somebody pushes you to a place that's super uncomfortable and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do that. This whole AI thing, I feel everything. My buns are burning in my seat, my feet are twitching, and my hands are sweating, and I am uncomfortable with this whole AI thing because it's super unknown for me. So maybe all these other companies will do that, but I'll start with the baby bot. Why? Why are you so uncomfortable being uncomfortable? Because your brain is wired for survival, and the known is in the path of survival, and the unknown is not. And that does not make it wrong or bad. It simply makes it uncomfortable and unknown. And I got news for you. If you want to really pursue the impossible, you better get real comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's where the impossible lives. And it's only that way because our brain is wired for the known. But if you really think about that, and if you've lived your life inside of what's known, aren't you all really living in cages with the doors wide open? I want you to think about that. Are you in your business right now operating inside of your own self-perceived cages of limitation because you're operating inside of your known. Well, if the whole world operated inside the known, we would never have advanced as a society. I mean, I want you to think about, there are movies like Back to the Future, the OG. There are movies made about the unknown future that we used to laugh about, and we are now living it. We are living sci-fi movies from the 70s. You know that, right? This whole AI conversation, we are literally living sci-fi movies from the 70s that everybody's like, yeah, that'll never happen. That's impossible. Or was it just not known? Guys, I need you to really take this one seriously, because every single person is living in a cage with the door wide open. There is nothing stopping you from pursuing anything. And what would happen if all of a sudden the idea of impossible wasn't even in existence, and you would write anything on that paper that your actual heart was just pulling you for? Like Carl Joseph's mother, who said, if God puts something on your heart, son, then go get it. What would happen if we removed the cage? What would we go get? Because that cage for most of us is our identity. And for your team members, it is their identity. And I'm going to show you today how that identity forms a cage, and I'm going to show you how to change it, because when we change it on purpose, we find self-motivation to go get and pursue anything. And you're going to find the opportunity to have your team, instead of feeling like you're babysitting them and constantly prodding them and poking them and trying to throw carrots out in front of them, you're going to watch your team members and yourself run towards the impossible. Because it's the reason why that identity can be so constraining is it is what is known about ourselves. Identity is literally a program that is written unintentionally. It's the background software of who we are as human beings showing up. And it creates self-limitations when it's left to its own accord, when it's programmed unintentionally. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of this. One of them comes from my own story of youth. Okay, I was in the 7th grade, which is a socially defining time of life. We all know this, and it was not a great time for me. I was vertically challenged. I was horizontally blessed. I had braces. I had glasses. My mother, bless her soul, she cut and permed my hair, which you shouldn't do, and then she permed the bangs. You don't perm the bangs. Who perms the bangs? I was a disaster. Acne broke out. I mean, if I was the walking, breathing example of why 7th grade should not exist. It was a rough time in my life, and I had this image of myself and an identity of myself that I was the short, chubby, awkward one. I had been the tomboy in junior in an elementary school, and that served me really, really well, because I could run as fast and beat up the boys on the playground. But in the 7th grade, when boys were cute, I had no idea how to function. There was not recess. My lifeline was taken from me. I had no idea how to show up in this situation. I don't even know who I am. And so I wake up every morning in a house with 6 kids and 1 bathroom and 5 sisters. Yeah, and I was the youngest, which meant my bathroom time in the morning lived in somewhere in the 32nd land, which was fine by me, because I didn't want to look at this and what was happening here for much longer in the mirror than was absolutely required. And I had a very, very hard 7th grade year, until everything changed in a single day. It changed in a single day because my older sister, getting ready in the morning, playing her music overly loud, walks out, tells me to walk in, her music is still playing, and I get in the bathroom to do my bad hair, deal with my bad self, and this song is playing, and it went a little something like this: I'm too sexy for my love, too sexy for my love. You guys know the song, right? And here I am doing my bad hair with my bad face and my bad self to I'm too sexy, and I get to school that day, and kids are saying hi to me in the hallway. And I get to science class, and Mr. Hot Pants in my science class told me he liked my shoes, which in the 7th grade was like minor profession of love. I mean, who doesn't know those rules? I was a big deal, and my best friend, she was like, what is up with you today? And I was like, well, I'm too sexy. That's what's happening right here, this right here. Too sexy. I had this realization that in that day, literally everything about my day changed. I mean everything. And yet nothing had changed. My hair hadn't changed. That's for sure. I mean, this bad boy was curling and twirling in all the wrong places. My acne hadn't changed. My glasses hadn't changed. Check the height. Nope. Check the scale. Yep. Nothing had changed, and yet everything changed. Why? Because when I am short, chubby, and awkward was replaced with I am too sexy, all of a sudden, the boundaries of my limitations were gone. I was living in a cage. The door was wide open. How does that show up? Tony Robbins describes it like this. He said, it's like an invisible force that controls your whole life. Invisible like gravity is invisible, but it controls your whole life. How you see yourself. Why didn't I just say hi to people in the hallway before? Why didn't I go sit next to the kids in the lunchroom before? Why wasn't I motivated to go do something different before? Because that identity bound me to that cage of short, chubby, and awkward. I saw myself that way, and I could not and would not pursue activities outside of that. It was too uncomfortable. It was not known. That is what identity is. And identity, in its simplest form, is an actual neuroscience principle. And I want to show you that neuroscience principle today. It's important that you know it, because this isn't just an idea. This isn't just, oh, identity, I've heard that word before. No, identity is literally your character or your personality programmed through neural patterns associated in the brain. It starts with something that we might know about ourselves or a hypothesis that we take on. We then seek for observation, things that we hear and see, and we gather evidence that whatever we thought that was true. Then what happens is we start to act in alignment with that thing. And once we've acted in alignment with that thing, we start to believe it. We start to feel about it just like that. And then next thing you know, that's how we see ourselves. And now that is what we know. This is what is called a neural pathway. I want you to think of every single one of those little steps, what we know, what we observe, how we act, how we feel, and how we see ourselves. These are like little neurons firing in the brain. And when they fire together frequently enough on the same frequency, they wire together. And once they wire together, they literally create a pattern for how you will show up in everything that you do. Why was I this unbelievably confident athlete until I became a 7th grader and claimed a label? And then all of a sudden I was the short, chubby, awkward 7th grader because I observed people who were like, oh yeah, wow, you lay off the donuts. I acted short, chubby, and awkward instead of like an elite athlete, which I was before. And it was literally the change in a label, 7th grader, because I knew what 7th graders were. Doesn't the whole world know what 7th grade is like? I told that story. You guys all laughed. Why? Do you know what 7th grade is like? We have socially defined 7th grade. I need you to think about that because your teams are associating labels that the entire industry has defined. You have taken on labels that the entire world has defined. Things like CEO, owner, insurance agent. Work with me on this. These things have observations. These things have inherent actions, and these things form neural patterns. There are things we know about our agencies, like, for example, what's your retention rate? What's your close rate on a new customer call or a lead call? When that becomes known, we will find observation to make it true. And when we do, we will act like that. And when we act like that, we will believe that that is our limitation. And we'll see that that's who we are. We're the team that gets this percentage of retention, this close rate. Well, what happens when we peel that away? I want to show you, because I want you not to just hear this from me, I want you to see this. We did an experiment using an EKG machine and literally wiring to someone's brain to actually talk to them about these topics. We had someone literally thinking about what it felt like to be in that label, the assigned title, they thought it and then they felt it. And I want you to see what happens when thought and feelings come together, these two little neurons that you're gonna see. I want you to see what happens when they start firing at the same time on the same frequency. These are two separate neurons. I want you to see how they find each other and how they wire together. Can you see that? This is gonna be a little up close view for you. They literally find each other and they wire together to create the programming that is you. Do you guys all see that? It is incredibly significant we understand that, because what that firing is is it's a perceived knowledge that captures observation, things we see, things we hear, that we then start to act like it because it's patterned and wired in our brain for survival. This is who you are. You must act like this. And now you're going to feel and believe that because that's what you're acting like, and the picture you hold of yourself is going to match that, and it's going to become known, and you have a wired and fired together neural pathway that is literally behind the scenes running the programming that is you. Does everybody understand? Does everybody understand this a little differently than they did before we started talking today? Good, because I need you to, I'm going to show you a few examples now, okay? So let's say, for example, that we come in and we actually claim the concept of I am tired. It's something that we know. So first thing that happens, we're going to capture some observations about this. And it's like, oh my gosh, I woke up late. I got bags under my eyes. Somebody said to me, whew, you look tired today. A rough night, running late. So we have all these observations. What do we know? Oh my gosh, I'm tired. And if I am tired, how do I act? Might move a little bit more slowly. I might work less effectively. I might shoulder slumped. I might literally try to put an IV line in with caffeinated beverages. And how do I feel all day? Tired, unproductive, exhausted, slow, down in the dumps. And next thing you know, how will I see myself? That's how I feel. I'm going to start to see myself as moving really slowly. I'm going to see myself not getting much done. I'm going to see myself, everything feels just a little bit harder because it's just taking a little bit more energy that I don't have. Somebody needs to ask me a question and I'm like, oh my gosh. It's 4:30, I'm so excited to get home for the day because I'm so tired, and somebody walks in and says, oh my gosh, I have this question about this new customer, and we're not thinking about revenue, we're not thinking about growth, we're thinking about how tired we are, and we're like, oh my gosh, the incompetency of my team. Been there, haven't you? Yeah, why? Because what do we know? Because we know we're too tired for this. That's the identity. We owned it, we claimed it, we're living it, we're breathing it, and we're not getting out of it. Let's do an actual example. This is an agency that I've worked with. He was in a situation where he transitioned ownership to himself from his father. I've noticed in the insurance world this happens a lot. Well, when he got into this position, his father had previously been the CEO and the owner, and he was different than his dad. They're not the same two people, but he was trying real hard to run it like his dad. And so what did he know? He knew that he had to be the responsible CEO and his owner because his dad told him all the time, you can take over this company, son, you better do it responsibly. Now you're the owner, you're the CEO, and he was told who he was. And he was a young guy, he was the son, and he was told all the time that you have to carry on the legacy, you got to take care of the business, you're in charge now. But then he was also told, but you're really young, so you got to be aware of that. And people would come up and be like, wait, so you're the owner now? These were all of his observations, so how did he act? His dad's breathing down his throat, his company's trying to figure out who the heck he is, and so he's like, oh my gosh, I just got to go. Everything has got to go right, and if it's not right, it's urgent. I got to just fix it. I am fix it, feel it. I just got to do it. And if you're doing it wrong, I just got to jump in and do it because I got to be responsible for everything. And I can't hand off everything to my team. I just got to push everything. We have to win. If I don't win right now, I'm going to be a failure, and I can't be a failure because this is my dad's legacy. Can you guys see how this is forming? What does that feel like? Heavy. That was the first word he used, actually. And super accountable and frustrating and overwhelmed. So if you're running a company from that emotional space, what's the picture? Right? What's the picture? All of a sudden, it's like, oh my gosh, no numbers can be good enough. So what am I doing wrong? Why is it never good enough? Why isn't it moving faster? I need a win, and I'm not winning big enough. And I'm too young, and people just don't look at me like they looked at my dad. And if that's the picture, what does he know about himself? Do you guys see how this works? And it forms a pattern, and those neurons, once they fire together often enough, they wire together, and now he's literally functioning like this even though he doesn't want to, and he's driving himself crazy. Exhausted and tired. It's like, my gosh, I'm going to have an anxiety attack trying to run this business. Because he wasn't running it as who he was running it like who his father told him he was supposed to be. So then what's possible? What's his motivation to pursue the impossible at this point? Mandatory? Accountability? You must do it or you're going to be a loser? How's that going to work out for him? Now, I want you to recognize that that's how unintentional neural pathways are formed. But what's really cool about what you saw in that video is that we then tested, and you can do that same thing on purpose. You can literally break and bind existing neural pathways, and you can, with the thought and the feeling coming together, can literally create a new neural pathway in your brain that starts to become the operating system as to how you function. So who do you want to be like, and how do you want to function? It better start showing up on purpose, because you're programming something, and that's how you're going to run. And so if you knew that, if you knew behind the scenes, you could program something to go get whatever you wanted, and the impossible was just a system of what hasn't happened yet, because it's no longer going to be about the known and the how. You're going to go get whatever the heck you want. Then what did God put on your heart, and what are you going to go get? And who's the person who shows up for that journey? Because if we want to do it on purpose, it literally starts with that picture of what I want. Not what I think I can get, not what I already know how to get, but what I'm literally just getting pulled on in my soul to go build. Why does it matter? Because the next step in the process, as you saw those two neurons firing, they had to fire together the thought and the feeling. And I got news for you. If you wrote down an impossible thing on your paper that you don't feel, you're not getting it. You want to go get it? You better feel it as much as you can think about it, or it ain't happening. Because the motivation for behavior comes in the feeling, not the thought. It's the thought and the feeling wired together that literally propels us into action. It changes the very nature of what I want to do. So if I got a thought, if I wrote something down on my piece of paper about what my impossible thing was, but I don't feel it, I just think I can. I just think that's a level I know how to get to, and I feel comfortable. I'm going to write that down. If that's what you wrote down, you're not going to get it. You got to write down something that is calling to you, something that is pulling you, something that you feel, and it almost freaks you out a little bit. If you're looking at your impossible and you aren't chuckling a little bit in your head because you're like, how the heck? Then you're not there yet. Because you got to feel something, because the feeling is what actually propels the action. That is the layer of motivation you're looking for. Because that layer of motivation, you will start changing your behavior. And when you change your behavior, you will receive observation that you, in fact, have changed. And that you are on trajectory and on path to go get that bigger picture. And when you've done that, you know it. And the cycle locks. And just like those two little neurons that you saw, they fire together often enough, they wire together, and all of a sudden you are functioning as a different person. And if you and every member of your team started functioning in alignment with that big purpose, and everybody knew who they were and what they were doing, and they were motivated as crap to get it done because it was personal, what starts to happen to your team? Oh, everything goes up. This is why I'm so passionate about this work, you guys, because when people figure out who the heck they are and what they're going to get, just watch out. The babysitting ends and the fun begins. Okay? So then what does this look like? Let's break it down. It starts with vision. What the heck is vision? I don't use goals on purpose because I need you to get out of, for just a second on this one, the actionable, measurable piece for just a minute. And I need you to get big with me for a minute. What's the picture that is so big that you don't know how on earth you'll get there? And it's almost scary to think that you want it, but there's something in your heart that's calling to you to go get it. That is vision. That is vision. Vision is just that thing that propels us. Like, this is a great quote by Maxwell Maltz. He said, a human being always acts and feels and performs in accordance with what he imagines to be true about himself. Think about my little short, chubby, awkward self. I imagined that to be true, and I acted just like that. And the moment I was too sexy, whoo, everything changed, even though nothing had changed. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? The vision, the picture has to be bigger than the known and the how, you guys, or you will not get out of your own way enough to feel it. Known is survival. Known doesn't have that deep passion. Known has just that safe feeling, that like, oh yeah, I think I could do that. I'm pretty sure I could do that. Yeah, I'm going to write that number down. That's going to be a 0.5 there. I'm going to give myself a little 0.5. I feel really warm and fuzzy with that one. I need you to get rid of the point and go 5x, and I want you to feel it, and I want it to be uncomfortable, and I want you to be like, holy mother of pearl, Natty. Like, I feel really sick right now, and I'm be like, good, we're getting close. Because you're feeling something. You have to feel it. And you have got to get the how out of your own way. When I wanted to go into the career of speaking, I was coming out of college and I knew I wanted to speak on the stages. When other little kids were at home playing with teddy bears and doing tea parties, I had a little stage set up. My mom has a picture of me. I was 5 years old. I had a little stool set up with a broom leaning against it as a microphone, and I had set up my teddy bears down on the floor to be my audience. I was speaking at 5 years old to my audience. So I get out of college and I graduated in marketing and sales and human behavior studies, and I didn't know how to be a speaker, but I picked up an internship for someone who was a speaker, and I was following her around the nation. She was on a 28-city tour. And we were about halfway through this tour. We were about 14 cities in. We were in New York City, and the power went off. And she had to come back in the green room, and I was there. And this woman, I could only describe her as being somewhat like Cruella de Vil. She was terrifying to work for. I mean, it was like I had to make sure every detail was right. The bananas had to have the perfect level of green. The green room had to be the exact temperature. Her water had to be this exact brand. It was, whew. So we get to the green room and she looks right at me and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've worked for this woman for 4 months and she doesn't even know what I do." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay. I book all the flights and I'm getting your green bananas." And she goes, "I don't want to know about your logistical details. Why are you here?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, they fly me out to every event to make sure everything goes well." And she's like, she looked right at me. She goes, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And I was like, "I'm terrified right now. I'm terrified." And she looked through my soul and she said, "Are you telling me you don't want anything more than green bananas in your life and fetching something for someone else?" I was like, "No, not telling you that. Not telling you that. No." She goes, "Then why are you here?" And she got me all worked up, flustered, and I just blurted it out. And I was like, "Well, I want to be on the stages of the world. I want to speak." And then she looked at me and she goes, "Then why aren't you doing it?" And I was like, I'm a senior in college. I'm like in an internship. And I said, "They don't even have degrees for speaking." And I was like, how do you just become a speaker? And she goes, "Well, the how is none of your damn business. Get out of the way." She goes, "You become the woman worthy of the stage, and I promise you that stage will show up. You have put yourself in a cage, young lady," she said, "because you don't know how. You aren't even starting." She goes, "You want to be a speaker? Do you speak every day? Do you write something down you'd like to tell somebody every day?" And I was like, "No." And she goes, "You're not even trying. Because you don't know how, you have imposed a self-limitation that is so big you aren't even willing to claim the vision." Whew. I am grateful every day for that woman. Because from that moment on, I was a speaker. Now here's how it goes. We're on the very second to last event on her tour. From that moment, I started writing everything that I wanted to. I started writing and I started practicing and I started speaking. And I was a collegiate athlete and a team captain at the time. And we were in the middle of our spring season. And I started having motivational water talks with Natty at water breaks. And my team was like, "Oh my gosh!" But then they finally started getting to love him. When we had a water break, they're like, "All right, what's the message, Natty? What are you bringing?" And I started doing motivational water talks, and I was writing every day, and I was talking to my own mirror. My roommates thought I'd lost my ever-living mind. But then something happened. Second to last event on her tour, we were in Florida, and there was a whole situation that happened at her airport, and her flight got canceled, and we kept rebooking and rebooking and rebooking, and she couldn't get there, and we had an audience of 500 people, and she wasn't going to show up. And the event coordinator was messing his pants. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, we're going to have a keynote speaker." And he looks right at me and goes, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to do it." And he goes, "Awesome," and turned and walked away. I was like, what in the world just happened? This man's going to put me on stage. She doesn't even know if I can put two sentences together. And so I'm like, "Oh, okay. Whew. I am a keynote speaker." Doing my calisthenics in the back, prepping my mind for my motivational water message that I'm about to give to 500 people. And next thing you know, it's my turn to speak. I scribbled some notes on a piece of paper for them to do an introductory bio, and they turned on my favorite song, and I got so fired up that I went to climb up the stairs. And on the stairs, just like this, there was this tiny little lip. And my toe caught the lip, and wham! I went down so hard and so fast, and I was not ready, and I face to stage. Boom! And I came, and you know when you hit your nose really hard, all the eyes are watering and it's running, and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I bleeding? I don't even know. But I popped up, and the audience was in like this, and I just played off of it, and it got me going, and it got them going, and it got me settled in, and I started going. I ended my presentation, and a woman in the audience said, you know, I came to evaluate the speaker because we were gonna hire her, but we'd like to hire you. A man in the audience came up to me and said, I'm a publisher, have you ever written your stories down? I said, no, and he goes, I would like to publish your first book. In one event, I became a keynote speaker and a published author by tripping onto a stage I was not supposed to be on and smashing my face just enough to make me uncomfortable. Do you guys see how the how's none of your damn business? She told me over and over away, get out of your own way. She said, if the how is defining your vision, you won't even start. You won't even try because you've decided you don't know how. This cannot define the impossible for you. Are we all on the same page? Because when we get to a picture that actually means something to us, we will feel it. And when we get a picture that we feel so deeply, what happens is those little neurons in our brain start yakking to each other. And next thing you know, until they wire together. And that is how you start showing up. And you can't even help yourself. You're getting up a little bit earlier because you're a little bit fired up. You're going into work and people are like, you got a lot of energy today. You're like, dang straight, I got a lot of energy. We're about to win. Let's go. And it changes the way you show up. It changes your actions. And all of a sudden, you start having a conversation like AI. And before, when it was a little bit uncomfortable and there was a little bit of trepidation, all of a sudden we're like, hey, let's learn, let's implement, let's try things. What are we going to do? What are we learning today? And our actions change. And as our actions change, guess what? We start to observe that the outcomes change. Guys, what I'm afraid of is that right now your vision is nothing but an outcome. Your vision better be a become. Your outcome is your observation. When you become, you will get the outcome. You'll get it. It will become your observation of an awareness that I am literally living the impossible because it was just not yet. The only difference was that I just didn't know how at the beginning. But what happens here is when you lay on to a picture that you want bad enough and you feel it bad and if you start taking those little actions, the actions become what is just the right next step. I don't know how I'm getting to the end. I don't need to know how. I need to know what I'm doing today. And what happens, you do something today and it opens a door over here you didn't even know existed. And because you now have that door to walk through, you take the right next step, and next thing you know, it opens another door. And then you take the right next step, and before you know it, you are observing the outcome that you wanted, that you thought was impossible. Everybody understand how that works? Let your outcomes be your observations, and let your vision be your becomes. Become worthy of the stages of the world, and they will show up for you. And the how is none of your business. I could not have predicted how I got to this place in my career at all. I had to let go of the how enough to start doing. Can you imagine if I hadn't just started talking? I had no idea how I was ever going to get on my first stage, but I started talking. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been ready for the stage. And when I wasn't ready for the stage, I wouldn't have gotten my first gig. When I wouldn't have gotten my first gig, I wouldn't have wrote my first book, and it would have changed the trajectory of my entire life because I would have been sitting on the sidelines of my own life because I didn't know how to go get what I wanted. So instead, I set my bar lower and said, I'll just start with an internship. Can we all see how this works? We can't be living in cages with the doors wide open. We got to go. We don't have to know how. You just have to know the right next step, and you got to be motivated enough to take it because you got to feel it enough to do it. And when we do that, it eventually turns into something, oh, we know it. We absolutely know it. So again, we're wiring from vision and picture into belief and feeling, into action that informs observation and outcome, that makes this now something that we absolutely know to be true. And the neurons fire together enough, they wire together, and next thing you know, we are functioning in a completely different capacity. Let's show you some examples. Remember our example of I am tired. This is unintentional programming. What happens when we get intentional? Well, we're like, I don't want to be tired. So I might wake up one morning tired, but instead of claiming I am tired, you will never hear me say that. I might say, whoo, I feel a little tired this morning, so I'm going to dial in. What's the picture I want? I'm going to start there. What's the picture? I wake up, I live a life on purpose. I'm going to have a little pep in my step. If I wake up and I feel tired, I shoot out of bed enough and it scares my husband. He's like, what happened? And I'm like, I'm moving. He's like, why are you moving? And I said, because I woke up and I felt a little tired, and that ain't happening. That is not who I am. What happens when we actually break that pattern? By creating a different picture. Because what happens is the second I hop out of bed like that, guess what happens to my feeling and what I believe to be true about myself? Oh, it locks in, and I get excited, and I get happy, and I get joyful, and I'm like ready for the day, like let's move. So then how do I end up showing up for myself? Those little daily patterns Mike was talking about, well, I show up for those daily patterns because it's who I am. Because I'm fired up to do it, not because I have to have a checklist, not because somebody has to make me do it, not because somebody's looking over my shoulder. It's because I want to, because I feel it, because I feel passion for my life, and because when I do those things, I all of a sudden receive observation that they're changing who I am. They're changing my capacity. They're changing how people see me and how I see myself. And all of a sudden, I actually know, well, I'm actually a very energetic and vibrant person. And I'm going to own that one. So when I shoot out of bed in the morning, I say I am energetic and vibrant. And my husband has gotten to the point now where he goes, felt a little tired this morning? I'm like, yeah. He goes, good for you. Because he knows what's about to go on next is I'm about to go ham on the get ready process. Because I'm not going to be tired. I refuse to be that person. I am not that person. This is who I am, and I'm darn well going to show up for it. Let's go back to my example about the gentleman in this agency where he was just laden with this responsible CEO. We had so much fun with this organization, you guys. I could tell you stories about them for days. They will be one of my favorite agencies I've ever worked with because of the turnaround was palpable. And it started with him. It started with him right at the top when he realized, I cannot lead like this. Who am I and how do I want to lead? And we started talking about picture and what was in his heart. And he was like, I love these people. I love these people. I want to inspire them. I want to help them. I want to teach them. I want to coach them. He goes, I really am good at sales and I love sales. I want to work with my agents. I want to teach them. I want to inspire them. I want to motivate them. He goes, I read books on my vacations and I just want to pour into my people. And I was like, well, when you think about showing up like that as a leader in your organization, what does that feel like? And he was like, oh my gosh. Oh, there was no heavy. It was like gratitude, excitement, light, power. Like his entire countenance changed. As we talked about this, and I said, if that's what you're feeling, how does that make you want to behave as a leader in your organization? And he said, oh my gosh, first I want to show up for me. Remember Mike said, who's your number one customer, number one client? You. And he felt that in this. He's like, I want to show up for myself because I want to walk in this door every day as the best version of myself. I want to show my guys how to do that because I know if my sales guys would start taking care of themselves and showing up as the best version of themselves, our sales would increase. And I want to lead by example. So I want to do that. And I want to strategize with them. I don't want to walk in here as a dictator. He said, my father was a dictator, and I'm now showing up as a dictator, and I hate that. I don't even like who I am in this role. That's why I don't want to be the CEO. He didn't want to be the CEO and owner of his own company, guys, because he didn't like who he was in that role. Tyler, you don't have to be your dad. How do you want to lead? How do you want to show up? How do you want to go reach those big goals? And when he latched onto that and realized it, within 2 weeks, people in his office started enjoying coming to work more. People in his office started doing, and within 2 weeks, revenue and retention turned. Within 2 weeks. Because he knew it, they knew it, and everybody knew where they were headed. And he claimed, I am an inspiring coach of success. And he put a sign on his door. This is who I am. You show up here because I will work with you, and we together will succeed, and I will coach this team to victory. He changed the decor in his office to sports decor. He put play like a champion above his door and he slaps it on his way in because he wanted that feeling of teamwork and camaraderie. He redecorated the office. The entire culture of this place shifted, and so did their revenue and retention numbers. Why? because those things started firing together and they started wiring together and he started observing differently. And what did he know about himself? He actually knew who he was, and he knew how to show up, and he knew how to go get the impossible all of a sudden when it wasn't there before. Then had an opportunity to work with his team, his core 4 executives. And I want you guys to realize, like, words matter here. There's a reason why he picked an inspiring coach of success. It's because he wanted that. He wanted to inspire. He wasn't just a coach. Words matter. And so this was his 4 executive staff. His first was the team lead of the CSRs. When we first started meeting with her, she just was, I was like, who are you? Like, what do you claim? And she's like, I'm the team lead over the CSRs. That's just who I am. I was like, well, do you like it? And she's like, well, I mean, I have a job. I take a paycheck home to my family. We got into vision. We got into what drives her. She claimed after that she was a difference maker. How does that change how she shows up in her role of leading the service team? Why do you think retention turned? The sales manager said, I'm a babysitter. She said, I babysit a bunch of guys who need my help to make sure they fill out a freaking form correctly. And I quote, right? So all of a sudden, when we got to working with her, she became a badass mentor. And I'm telling you, when she claimed that, it was like the whole room lit up like electricity. She was like, I don't want to babysit these guys. I want to empower them. Like, I want to teach them everything I know. I want to pour into them, and I want to be better at that than anybody else. And she started claiming this. This woman had headaches every day. The moment she claimed this, she didn't have a headache anymore. Why did she have a headache before? Have you ever had to babysit children before? Naughty ones? Oh yeah, it gives you a headache. Her headaches went away magically. Interesting, huh? The office manager was talking about how she saw herself, and ultimately, do you know what she was claiming? She was not enough. She couldn't be enough to try to help Tyler with this transition and everything that was going on, and the sales managers and the struggle and all the things. She started to become a confident coach. Because I told her she wasn't allowed to claim assistant coach. She wanted to be Tyler's assistant coach, and I'm like, oh heck no, you be your own coach, but you can help him out. Their CSR trainer, interestingly enough, wouldn't ever get anything beyond, I'm a trainer, I'm a trainer, I'm a trainer, I'm a trainer. I was like, well, what does a trainer look like? What does a trainer do? Everything was by the book. Everything was check marks. Everything was, well, I make sure everybody's done their training. Check, 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 check. I'm like, we have no passion towards this? What do we really want? Next thing you know, she's claiming I am an unstoppable guide to taking every one of my service people to their vision. What happened in that service department was nothing short of miraculous, you guys, because after the transition to his father, that company fell 11% in retention. They went into the 76th percentile. In a matter of only 2 months, they got all the way back up to 86%, and we are on trajectory, and we're not done. What do they know? They know that who they are matters. They know that showing up, they can do anything. There is no longer a thing. When I first started working with them, do you know what their goal for retention was? It was 78%. I was like, you guys are killing me. You're killing me here, but I can't say that. I'm like, 78%, huh? Why is that? Why did they have a goal of 78%? Because that's how, they knew how to get that, and they knew it could be done, the known and the how. Look at that, showing up again, holding us back into limitations. These guys are gonna hit 90%, I guarantee it. Guarantee it. Because of where they're going, because of how they're showing up. And it's because they are no longer showing up every day trying to run their business. They show up every day to grow their business because everybody in their business is running themselves. Because identity is the root of motivation. And when I know who I am and I see something and I feel something, I act in alignment with that thing. It's like gravity. It pulls me into that place. And so they've got every member on their team crushing it because they want to. So they get to show up every day and grow that thing and not get buckled down every day in that. Is this making sense for everybody? Are we putting all the pieces together? And I need you to understand this is not a philosophical concept. It is literally neuroscience. It is literally the way neurons fire and wire together to actually run the internal programming. And this works in every facet of your life. Like Mike said, every Thursday I get the opportunity as a part of our nonprofit to go and work in the prisons. And I was working in this particular prison, and this young man was in there, and I call him young man because he looked like a baby to me. He'd been serving in prison for 14 years. And when I saw him, I said, "Who are you?" And he's like, gave me his number, 754-632. I was like, no, who are you? And he gave me his prison nickname, which is Chippy, by the way. And I said, no, not your nickname, not your number. Who are you? And he said, I am the scum of humanity. He said, I am a menace to society. He goes, what else do you want to know? You want my charges? You want my book? You want my jacket? What are you looking for, lady? And I said, well, I'd start with your name. And it took us 5 minutes for him to utter his first name to me because he hadn't used it and no one had called him that in 14 years. He said, you don't want to know what I really want because what I really want isn't possible. I said, why is that? And he goes, because I'm here because I'm serving 6 life sentences because I killed 6 men. He goes, my parole officer hasn't even been born yet, so what I want, I cannot have. So I refuse to tell you what I want. I said, what if we just tried it? What if you just trusted the process for just long enough to just say it out loud? 2 weeks later, he came back and he said, I'm willing to claim it. I said, what is it? And he said, I am the world's greatest father. He goes, but that'll never be true because I can't be there for her. He said, I got booked in the day I got booked in. My daughter was 3 years old and my wife married somebody else that day. And he said, I have not talked to her or seen her in 14 years. I said, well, what would it look like if you started claiming I'm the world's greatest father? Because up until this point, this man was in solitary confinement because he was in a constant state of trouble. Because he had 6 life sentences, he had decided it didn't matter what he did in there. He could just continue to add them. What difference does it make to him? He's serving time anyway, yeah. What difference does it make? He had a write-up every single week. His time had been added on to the point it was ridiculous. He was on 2 different types of antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication. So what would it look like if you were the world's greatest father? How would that guy show up? And he started painting a picture of what this guy would look like with integrity, the kind of people he would associate with, the words that would come out of his mouth, the way he would treat his own body, the food that he would take, the conversations that he would have. He started picturing how he would walk through the halls of that prison if his 3-year-old daughter, who was now 17 at the time, but he pictured her at 3, was walking next to him. Would he say what he was about to say and do what he was about to do? I've worked with Paul now for over 3 years. Paul's daughter calls him every single Wednesday, comes to see him every other weekend. I got a chance to meet her and talk with her, and she said, my dad is the greatest dad in the world. What changed? His circumstances? His sentencing? No, he did. When the man showed up worthy of his daughter showed up. You have to become worthy of the impossible, and the impossible will show up. It just will. Because you will start to show up different. You will start to do the actions that are required and necessary. You will make the changes. Now, I know that sometimes I get into these things and I'm a little bit intense, but guys, it's because I'm so passionate about this. I have seen it work in every situation of life. I've seen it work in the darkest holes of hell in that prison, to the shiniest moments of corporations, to everything in between when I've had a chance to work with children and everything in between. Guys, I could tell you stories for days about the impossible that shows up when you show up. But just to show you that also I'm a little bit human as well, I'm going to tell you about one of the greatest moments that taught me this lesson when I was in the 9th grade. Actually, I was in the 7th grade. It goes back to that time of year, the life learning lessons for me, guys. I got my braces on. And I don't know if you've had kids that have braces on or if you remember getting braces on, but when you have your braces on, your brain does this thing where it doesn't think you can close your lips properly anymore, and you end up doing this whole out and around business. Like you're like, it's like, and you hold them up and you got your kids, you're like, close your mouth. And they're like, I can't, I got my braces on. They're walking around like this. Well, I played basketball and we had a game that day. And I go in there and I'm clearly, doing this, and I'm vertically challenged. And 7th grade girls basketball might be the worst sport in the history of time. I mean, I played it so I can claim this, but literally the games end at like 6-8. Like that's the ending score. It's so painful. It's because the tall girls haven't figured out coordination above their head yet, so they can't catch, and the small girls are too short to hit the rim, and it's a whole situation. But I'm in there, I'm vertically challenged, and all my tall girls can't catch, so the ball goes up, shoots down for a rebound, down to the ground, but I'm comfortable with that because that's my domain in my vertically challenged world. So I go in and I grab the ball, but on my way back up, I get my brackets stuck in the butt of the girls that I was defending. My face is stuck to her butt, and my brackets are like in there in her mesh shorts. And I have the ball, and I'm pulling, and she's whacking my head. And because I have the ball, all the other girls spread out, and I'm on the ground, and I'm just I'm pulling, and I'm trying to get out of this situation, and she's whacked, man. Finally, I just rip. And you can hear it through the whole gymnasium. This girl's shorts are got thread hanging out. I have thread. I look like a piranha. Thread's just hanging down my face. And I mean, my teammates are lying on the court. They've just laid all the girls are laying. The ref has sat on the bleachers. He can't even stand up. He's laughing so hard. If there were cell phones back then, I would today still be a famous meme. Well, so halftime comes. They just ended the first half. They could not regroup. People couldn't regroup, so they just called halftime. We're in the locker room. I'm using my brilliant 7th grade brain thinking if I just wrap that thread around there, that ought to hold. But I go out there, and as soon as I start running, and you breathe, the thread goes, and everybody'd start laughing all over again, and I'm realizing in my mind, I am a butt biter. That's who I am. I'm in the 7th grade. I am socially cursed, and I am a butt biter, and I am so screwed. But then what happens is something in my head clicks on, because I realize when I go and the thread goes, the girls go, and I can just go straight to the hole. So I start coming down the court, and I go, and the thread goes, and I go, and I proceeded to score 28 points in straight layups, which was a record for 7th graders at that time. Thank you very much. And I ended that game going from butt biter to record setter in a moment. Nothing changed, yet everything changed. Guys, I promise you, nothing has to change for everything to change except for you. You are the difference between impossible or not, and you will motivate the behavior, the drive to act in alignment with the impossible when you realize anything is possible. Nothing has to change except for you. Thank you.